8 or 9 senators who wanted to restore the confidential and intelligence fund of the Vice President. There's no votation that happened yesterday.
The facts contained in the article, Mr. President, Your Honor, is not a leak. Chismis yun.
Creates distrust from among us 24 senators. Ibig sabihin, the next time around that we are going to have our caucus or executive session, hindi na ako basta-basta magsasalita. Baka mamaya, meron na naman maglilik sa media.
Yesterday, we had an all senators caucus, and we discussed lengthily the budget of the Republic of the Philippines. And just before we entered this august chamber, much to my dismay, and much to our dismay, there was a news report that identified 8 or 9 senators, and there were names on that list. 8 or 9 senators who wanted to restore the confidential and intelligence fund of the Vice President and the Department of Education. And I wish to tell the people of the Philippines that there was no votation that happened yesterday with regard to the intelligence fund of the Vice President and the Department of Education. In fact, we had an executive session. And I do not know who of our colleagues who scooped or leaked our conversation to this media outlet. I have been a senator here for more than 10 years. And this is the first time that I encountered a scoop or a leakage. I do not know. I do not want to name names. This is a violation of our rules. And the majority floor leader will expound it later. Mr. President, we discussed lengthily for almost 2 hours the schedule, etc., of the budget of the Republic of the Philippines. We never touched or we never voted with regard to all the intelligence fund or confidential fund. In fact, we agreed unanimously to remove all the confidential and intelligence fund, not only that of the Office of the Vice President, including not only that of the Department of Education, but all security or civilian agencies na merong confidential and intelligence fund. Mr. President, nawala. I will just read. Sino mga pangalan? First on the list, Senator Robin Padilla, Christopher Bongo, Ramon Bong Revilla Jr., Ronald Bato de la Rosa, Jingo Estrada, Lito Lapid, Francis Tolentino, and Cynthia Villar. They are putting us in a bad light, and I condemn this. And I take offense on this. Nakalagay pa, Senator Pia Cayetano is said to be supportive of reinstating Duterte's confidential funds if she can justify the need for them. This is not true. And I hope Senator Pia Cayetano will agree with me. Told this media outlet that Senators Sani Angara, Francis Escudero, Rafi Tulfo, Aquilino Pimentel III, and Risa Ontiveros are allegedly against the reinstatement of Duterte's secret allocation, which are lodged under the Office of the Vice President and the Department of Education. Mali-mali po itong report, Mr. President. And I think Senator Angara must not be included in this list. And among the offices, Duterte's allocation was part of the 1.2 billion in confidential funds that the House realigned to agencies focused on the West Philippine Sea. Mr. President, tumayo po ako rito dahil masamang-masama po ang loob ko. I really felt insulted. And I think my other colleagues here also felt the same way, Mr. President. And Mr. President, I stand before you and I want to make this recommendation maybe to talk to this media outlet or to summon this media outlet and ask them, who among us violated our rules? Who among us leaked what transpired in our executive session yesterday? That's all, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Jinggoy. Before I recognize the other members, may I just like to put on record, I too am very disappointed. I have been a senator for 4 plus 6, 10 plus 2, 12 years, and a member of Congress for 9 years. And when we say executive session, we are bound by rules of both the House of Representatives and when I was in the House of Representatives and rules of the Senate when I was elected as a senator. Before I recognize the majority floor leader on the repercussions of violating that rules, I would just like to put on record as well that we had a healthy discussion. There was no voting that took place. There was a healthy discussion on how we will treat this budget, particularly on the confidential and intelligence funds. It's not fair to say that one group was for this and one group was for that because in the end, tama po sinabi ni Senator Estrada, we were unanimous in the committee report that the good gentleman from Aurora will be presenting today. We are in full support of his committee report. Now, I am very alarmed. As a matter of fact, that's why we were late. I usually try to start at 3 p.m. We had a meeting with the leadership, Senator Joey Villanueva and Senator Lauren Legarda. We met because of the implications of leakages during executive session. The executive department and very sensitive agencies of government may no longer divulge information to the executive session if they know somebody might leak it. That's why I take this very strongly, and I make sure, and I told the majority floor leader that I even called up Senator Nancy Binay because she is the head of the ethics committee, that we have to send a very strong signal that this shall not happen again. So, majority floor leader,
Yes, Mr. President. Before I give my statement, Mr. President, which I actually agree with your manifestation and the statements made by our dear colleague Senator Jinggoy Estrada,
that the account is not accurate and that is not what transpired in executive session. I hope, Senator Jinggoy, you and I will not be sanctioned for saying part of what happened, as you said. It was the unanimous consensus of the members of the Senate in executive session. So this is not the facts contained in the article, Mr. President, Your Honor, is not a leak. Chismis yun. So there is no leak to speak of really with respect to what truly transpired in the executive session. An attempt perhaps to create a story about it, but I confirm the statement of the good Senate President and the Senator Jinggoy that it was the unanimous position of the House, what Senator Angara will be sponsoring today and the other vice chairpersons. That was the unanimous position of the Senate and all the members of the Senate.
To associate myself with the comments made by the majority leader, kahit chismis yan or gossip yan, walang problema sa akin yan. Ang problema, bakit or paano lumabas sa isang media outlet yung mga nag-transpire sa ating usapin kahapon.
yes.
That is, for me, that is the most important thing.
Restoration ng CF ng Office of the Vice President. Tama yun, pero kulang. Kasi kahapon ako sinasabi ko, tanggalin din ang intelligence fund ng Office of the President. So kulang yung report, ipakidagdag sa report. Kasi the Office of the President is a civilian office, not an armed agency, and not a uniformed agency. So kulang po, pakidagdag na lang.
You are not violating the rules because you're divulging your own position. Yes. So, yes, Senator Bato de la Rosa is recognized.
That it creates distrust from among us 24 senators. Ibig sabihin, the next time around that we are going to have our caucus or executive session, hindi na ako basta-basta magsasalita. Baka mamaya, meron na namang maglilik sa media. So pangit po, 24 lang tayo dito na senador at hindi pa natin mapagkatiwalaan ang isa't isa natin, Mr. President. Number 2, it tarnishes. 24 lang tayong hinalal ng buong Pilipinas at hindi pa natin mapagkatiwalaan ang isa sa atin na pwedeng nag-leak. If indeed, it was leaked by any member of the Senate. Kung ang nag-leak naman noon ay empleyado na nandoon sa loob, well, as a police officer, former police officer, Mr. President, I can vividly recall kung sinong nandoon sa loob. Dalawang staff ni Senator Angara. Mavic,
Oh, Attorney Mavic.
Attorney Mavic. At may isang kasama si Attorney Mavic na babae. So, apat silang nalalaman ko na nandoon sa loob. Magprangkahan tayo dito. Dapat we have to made into account yung tao na responsable dito. Hindi lang na magsisente ng stern warning sa kanila, kundi the damage has been done. Lumabas na yung balita niya, nasira na kung sinong dapat masira, but I don't care kung masira ang reputasyon ko. Ang sa akin lang, ma-preserve yung ating reputasyon as a Senate. Hindi po maganda yung hindi tayo magkakatiwalaan dito. 24 lang tayo, Mr. President.
And the waiter staff, huwag mo kalimutan yung mga staff sa likod. Yung mga waiter din, yung nandun din sila.
Isama natin sa investigasyon
Isama
niyo,
natin
Mr.
sila.
President.
So if the chamber wishes, I can ask Senator Nancy Binay, who is the chairperson of the Committee on Ethics, to look into this closely, if it is all right with the body.
Yes, I support, Mr. President, I support the call of Senator Jingo Estrada that yung source nitong news na ito, if it is a politiscope, he has to be called before a hearing para malaman natin kung sinong source niya. At kung hindi siya magsabi ng totoo, I will be the first one to move for the citing in contempt of that media personnel, Mr. President. Ikulong natin yan kung ayaw magsabi ng totoo. Mr. President, this is not a laughing matter. This is serious. Filipino people are watching us right now. Sabihin nila, ganyan na pala Senado ngayon, hindi ba pagkatiwalaan? Sila lang nag-uusap, magli-leak pa doon sa media. It's very dangerous, Mr. President. Very dangerous. Masyadong akong dismayado. Committee on Ethics. Conduct a hearing and call, invite the source of the news, Mr. President, so that everything will be cleared out.
Yes, we'll ask the majority floor leader to make the proper referral and motion.
Before we make the proper motion, Mr. President, may I just appeal to our dear colleagues to hear the sentiments of our
Other colleagues.
other colleagues. We have, Mr. President, Senator Pia Cayetano been waiting for quite a long time.
Senator Sherwin Gatchalian and Senator Lauren Legarde.
May I request that we discuss this in caucus now, because by saying what is true or untrue in the reported publication online, we are speaking about the executive session. And let me just remind the body of Section 129 of the Rules of the Senate. It is not even a matter of whether it's published online or hard copy. The mere divulging the executive session minutes or any part of it who violates all the provisions in the executive session contained in the preceding sections by 2/3 vote may be expelled from the Senate. It is a very serious violation, Mr. President, by a senator or an officer or a staff in Rule, what is this?
129.
Yes, 129.
Section 129.
So, by saying that it is not true, or it is true in part, but in fact it is this and that, we are actually talking about the executive session. So it is my humble opinion, respectfully, I do not want to muzzle our colleagues, and if they want to speak on the floor, I leave it to your better judgment. But many of us feel strongly about this, and I respect the right of Senator Estrada for standing on the floor. But if we are going to speak about each and every line which was published, whether it is true or not, with all due respect to the publication which I've not read, may we discuss it in caucus in relation to 129 rule of the Senate. That is my humble suggestion. But I leave it to the members of the Senate if they want to speak about it in session. Thank you, Mr.
Yes.
President.
Mr. President, let me align myself with the observation and recommendation of the Senate President Pro Temp. I did not stand, I did not raise my hand with the intention of clearing any statement I made. I did not even read that. I don't bother reading those kind of articles. I don't.
Mentioned as well. The broader implication of this, Mr. President, is the trust and confidence to the Senate. It's our credibility on the line. And every budget hearing, normally, a lot of the security cluster, the National Defense, the Department of National Defense, the PNP, the NICA, all of them normally will request executive session so they can tell us what is the reality, the national security situation, national security matters, so that we can act accordingly. Leaks like this will hamper, will destroy our credibility, destroy our integrity, and it will now prevent the security agencies to give us the truth because they will have doubts in their minds whether the truth or whether information will be kept safe in the halls of the Senate. So, Mr. President, I would like to associate myself with the motion of Senator Bato that this should be looked at and investigated seriously because it's the Senate's credibility on the line.